Hello everyone, Zidster here with another riveting episode of Final Fantasy XIV Dungeons for Dummies. Okay, maybe not riveting, but hopefully enjoyable. I am going into this dungeon with the duty support system. I didn't have my group with me this time, and I'm going as a healer. This healer's job is known as a scholar, one of the first of Final Fantasy XIV's healers when it first came out. So it's been a while, and let's see how well I do with this one. I'm jumping right on in. We are going into the 5th dungeon of Final Fantasy XIV, known as Thousand Maws of Totorack. Now this is a main scenario dungeon. This is not an optional dungeon. Of course, most of the dungeons are not optional in the long run, but some of them are easily missed, and then you have to go back and do them again, which nobody wants to do. Anyhow, in here I am going to be pulling. Now, most healers, I'm telling you, don't do this. However, I'm having to do it because the duty support system tank does not run ahead of everyone else. So I will be pulling only in small pulls because, again, it has been a long time since I've done Scholar. In fact, this was one of my first healers. My best is actually Sage, so I am a bit rusty here. Now, in this dungeon, there used to be these Magitech film thingies that you had to find throughout the dungeon. This was a very convoluted dungeon, and if you didn't find all the little Magitech film doodads, I can't remember exactly what they are, and now that they've changed the dungeon, I still don't know what they are. You had to have all of them for each section of the dungeon to be able to open up the boss rooms. They have changed that now. You do not have to find those, and they've made this dungeon a little more straightforward. So there's no really any serious side paths or any way to really get lost. Healers in this dungeon, you have to watch out for poison. Poison is a big no-no here. It will hit the tanks hard and heavy. So make sure you have Insuna available and heavy heals. Now, in the case of scholars are not known as a pure healer. They are barrier healers, which means their basic healing abilities don't do a whole lot of healing. So they base it upon being able to do really good shields. And scholars have the added benefit of a fairy. Now, originally, the scholars had 2 fairies, Selene and Eos. Selene was known to be more of a defense fairy. It would throw shields up around your party. Eos was known to heal your party. They have now whittled it down to just Eos, which, mind you, if you liked Selene, the look of Selene better, I think there's some way of glamoring your fairy so that you have the Selene look or the Eos. It's kind of up to you. Now, as we finish up these mobs, I do believe we are coming up on the first boss. And as we go through here, well, maybe I'm wrong. I thought maybe we were coming up on it. Anyway, when we come up to the first boss, the issue is going to be it throws poison on the tank. And it's a poison that cannot be removed. So if you are a barrier healer, your best bet is to just continue to try and keep your tank as much full hit points as possible. This being the fact that you would want to use Sisek as much as possible, but in scholar cases, your best bet is Etaloquium. which puts an ability called Galvanize on your tank. You can also use Sucker, which puts Galvanize on the entire party. So that kind of helps as well. There is an insta-heal, but it doesn't do a whole lot, and it will eat up your ether points, which at this point in the game you don't have. So you're not going to be able to do a whole lot here, so just keep an eye on your tank. Best thing to do is put poison on the enemy and then just keep an eye on everybody else's health. Now, this boss is just the boss. This is a basic tank and spank. Just continue to heal the party and let the DPS and the tanks do their jobs, and you keep everyone healed. This is actually rather quick. It doesn't take too long to go through, and then you'll be moving on to the next section of the dungeon. Now keep in mind, healers, as you're doing this, that you want to make sure that you have all of your abilities that you have available at that time to be able to use. DPS, if you can do a ton of damage, the sooner you can take this boss down, the better. So the minute you get to this, make sure that you can burn it down. Now moving on, as you'll notice, there's these water stain notes against the walls. Those are where the those Magitech film pieces were that you needed to have. You can stop and read them if you want to. It is part of the story. It does give you a little bit of information about 1,000 Maws of Totorack. But otherwise, you can just ignore them and move on, fighting the bosses and the mobs. So that is taken care of. Now, as we go through here, I really didn't think ahead when I put this video together. I actually thought to myself after a while that I needed to explain Healer a little better. If you've never played Healer before, there are some quick tricks and cheats, not cheats per the game, but shall we say fast buttons that you can use to help yourself. Things that I didn't even know about when I first started. Most people who start playing this game kind of jump into it and don't understand how certain classes work or what they're supposed to do. And it took me a very long time to get that figured out. Now that I do, I want to pass those little tidbits on to you. If you'll notice, up in the upper left hand side of my screen, you'll see the life bars of the 4 people in my party, me and the rest of my team. And if you'll notice, as I go through, you'll notice this, they light up, then different ones will go down, up and down, and this is my way of being able to heal. Now, what I normally will do in most cases is I click on an enemy, and then as I see people's hit points go down, I use the down button or the directional down button on my controller, because I do play PS5, up or down to remove poison status, heal, or add shields as needed. This is not a very difficult mechanic to learn. However, you have to keep an eye on your team. 9 times out of 10, what healers end up doing is they end up DPSing and forgetting that the tank has got half a dozen, if not more, mobs on him, and his hit points are dropping fast. It won't be until all of a sudden they fall over and you go, oh no, what have I done? And you have to scramble to catch up. So healers, pay attention to your tanks and your team. Don't get so into the fight that you forget to heal. Now, like I said, this dungeon has been changed from its original form. That being said, there are certain mechanics that still happen in this dungeon. The floor, in particular, when you get to the main boss, will have this sticky substance that will slow you down. So watch yourself. Try not to stand in it for too long, because if you have to move, you will not move quickly. So keep that in mind. There are also treasure chests in here. Of course, there are in every dungeon. Keep in mind, you can open those chests. Any loot that's in there may help you with your gear sets if you are below the level or you need something to toughen up your character. Make sure to take a look in there. Also, if you're a collector for glamours, there might be something in there you like. If not, you can always get them and turn them in for whatever company seals that you are with, be it the Twin Adder, and the other two. I'm sorry, I do Twin Adder and I keep forgetting the other two. The ones for Ul'dah and Limsa Lominsa. So keep that in mind. Make sure to keep an eye out for it if there's something you want in there. If not, you can use them for seals, turn around, get venture coins, and all sorts of other cool stuff from your grand company. Now this boss, again, is similar to the previous one. This one is a tank and spank. However, this one produces mobs. DPS, the tank will not be able to handle taking on the boss and the mobs. So DPS, you need to run around, find your mobs, kill them as fast as humanly possible. Keep in mind, the poison that is put on each of you in this fight cannot be removed. It is on there until the end of the fight. So healers have to keep you up. So try to burn down the mobs and the boss as quickly as possible. For white mages and astrologians, this is not a problem. They usually are able to keep you up, but barrier healers such as Scholar and Sages have to rely on their barriers, which unfortunately do not do so well against poison. Now we are on to the third and final stage of the dungeon. Now, in this case, like I said, I went in here with the duty support system because I didn't have my other crew available. You can go into each of the rooms off to the sides if you want. There is loot in there, but there's not much else. My suggestion is just to move on straight through. This is a fairly simple dungeon. Not too much to explain. So just basically burn down your mobs and move on. Now my next video, I intend to go a little more in depth, and I will be with the duty support system. For that one, for multiple reasons, there's a little more to that dungeon than this one. So I don't want to slow down company members or anybody else that I may bring into the party. There'll be some mechanics and some things to show you in the dungeon that need to be shown. Again, it's one of those things of remembering that each and every one of these mobs gives you experience. And you're going to get into groups where people just decide, you know what, we're just going to run it. We're not going to take the time to make sure we've taken out all the mobs. They do it because it's part of a roulette. They get extra money, they get extra something or other that they want to do, or if it's mentor roulettes, they're not in there for the experience. They've already maxed leveled. So they are in there purely for the fact that it is a level roulette and that they need it for getting their mentor mount. So they will not go for those side rooms. They won't go and get the mobs. They just run as fast as they can through the dungeon. If this be the case, if you are in here for leveling purposes, feel free to ask the tank, hey, can we grab these mobs so that we can get extra experience? And if they say, oh, well, you're not going to get any extra experience, they're not true. The extra experience comes from all of the monsters, not just the bosses. But a lot of people think that it's just the bosses and that's it, since they've changed up the battle system some. Now, in most cases, these battles would move faster if I had number 1 in AoE move, which this lower level I do not. And of course, the duty support system does. They target one monster at a time. They don't do large AoE attacks to take the monsters down faster. And it does eat up a little more time to watch and see these videos through. So I'm terribly sorry on that. Now, we are coming down. This is the last set of mobs before the final boss. Healers, make sure that you are prepared to take on the final boss. In this final boss room, the boss will put down poison AoEs that you have to watch yourself for. They stay put. They don't move. So once the poison is down, you'll have to watch your step and not step in the poison. He will also drop down more mobs and drop down these little egg things that will explode and cause poison damage. So DPS, watch your steps. Tanks, watch your backs. And healers, keep tabs on them all, because it's going to happen. And it happens actually quite more often than you would think. This boss has been changed from the original, so it is slightly different. And as we go through, I will point out things to keep in mind as you are fighting this boss. Now, I'm sorry, to me that thing just looks like a spider scorpion mixture thing. And there's that green goo. Watch yourself. Don't try and get outside of the arena. If you do, you're going to get stuck and slowed, and it's going to be very difficult for you to move around. And that's around the entire outer part of the arena. So watch your step. If you have to move fast, you're not going to be able to if you're on that green goo. Now, as we're going through this, you're seeing these some more of these tiny little ones that are appearing, and there's one of the eggs right there. You do not want to be near it because it will explode, and when it does, it poisons the people standing near it. So you see that thing go down, get to the other side of the arena. DPS, if you see the mobs, you can either burn down the boss or you can take out the mobs. It is more convenient to have the mobs gone, but it is not the end of the world. The ads are only there to do more damage. Healers, if the healer, you've got a good healer in the party, will be able to take care of not having to worry about fighting off the mobs. Now, if you'll notice, he just put down that green glob of goo. Unlike the duty support system, most people don't stand in it. It lingers for a while and doesn't go away immediately. So when you see that, move out of it. And if possible, move him out of it. That way, if a DPS has to get behind him or someone has to get around him, they're not stepping in the poison. And here we go with another round of ads and bombs. Watch your steps. Watch your step not to get in the green goo. And keep your eye on the boss, because he does put that green goo down rather quickly. You're not expecting it when he does it. And there you have it. That is 1,000 Maws of Totorack. And I hope that this has been helpful in your adventures experience through Final Fantasy XIV. And I hope that if you like this video, please feel free to leave a like. If you have any comments, if there's something you think I forgot, or there's something you think I should add, or any number of other things, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And above all, please subscribe. And if you want me to touch on something else, or you think that there's something else I can do to help you understand these dungeons better, feel free. Let me know. I hope you enjoyed this, and see you on our next adventure.